The Rise of American Power: How the U.S. Became a Global Giant. The story of how the United States rose from a fragile young nation to a global giant is a sweeping journey shaped by ambition, conflict, innovation, and a set of beliefs that transformed a scattered group of colonies into one of the most influential forces in modern history. When the country was founded in 1776, few world powers believed it could survive, let alone dominate the global stage. Early America faced enormous challenges: an underfunded government, internal division, limited military strength, and little recognition abroad. Yet gradually, through a mix of geographic advantage, industrial growth, technological breakthroughs, and political decisions, some wise, some controversial, the U.S. expanded its reach and redefined what national power could look like. Historians often point out that a major turning point came in the 19th century, when the young nation pushed westward, driven by a widely held belief known as manifest destiny, which suggested that Americans were meant to expand across the continent. While this expansion brought opportunities and economic growth, it also caused conflict, displacement, and deep moral debates that continue to shape the country's legacy. As the U.S. grew in size, its natural resources, coal, oil, timber, fertile farmland, became engines fueling rapid industrialization. And by the late 1800s, American factories were producing goods at speeds that rivaled Europe's strongest powers. By the early 20th century, the U.S. economy had become one of the largest in the world, and the country began to play a bigger role in international affairs. World War I marked America's first major global intervention. Although the U.S. initially tried to avoid getting involved, its industrial capacity and fresh military forces helped tilt the balance of the war, and experts widely believe this moment signaled the beginning of America's global presence. Even so, the United States retreated into isolation afterward, hesitant to embrace the role of world leader. But the Great Depression forced new thinking, and federal programs launched under President Franklin Roosevelt reshaped not just the economy, but America's understanding of government power. Then came World War II, a conflict that changed everything. When the U.S. entered the war in 1941 following the attack on Pearl Harbor, it mobilized at a scale history had never seen. According to historians, American factories produced nearly two-thirds of Allied military equipment, from planes to ships to ammunition. This massive industrial output, paired with the strength of the U.S. military, turned the tide of the war and positioned the nation as a dominant superpower by 1945. But victory also brought responsibility. With Europe and Asia devastated, the U.S. took the lead in rebuilding the global economy, helping create institutions like the United Nations and the World Bank, and establishing the dollar as a central currency in international trade. Some experts argue that this post-war moment represents the true birth of American global leadership, when the country shifted from isolation to strategic engagement. As the Cold War began, the United States faced a rival superpower in the Soviet Union, and the competition between democracy and communism pushed America even deeper into world affairs. The U.S. invested heavily in scientific research, technology, and defense, leading to breakthroughs like nuclear energy, space exploration, and early computing. Government funding supported companies and universities that helped shape Silicon Valley, aviation, and modern medicine. Many historians note that America's global influence during this period wasn't just military, it was cultural. Hollywood films, jazz and rock music, consumer brands, fashion, and television programs spread American culture across continents, creating what experts sometimes call soft power. While the Cold War also included conflicts, political missteps, and periods of public distrust, it reinforced America's role as a strategic player on every major global issue. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the United States became the world's sole superpower, And throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, it helped shape globalization, technological innovation, and international security policy. However, modern analysts point out that America's global dominance has never been uncontested. Questions about economic inequality, political polarization, foreign policy decisions, and competition from rising nations like China continued to influence debates about America's power today. Even so, many experts say the core elements that built American strength, innovation, immigration, education, a vast internal market, military capability, and a system that encourages reinvention remain defining features of the nation. Understanding how the U.S. became a global giant requires acknowledging both its achievements and its contradictions. The same system that fostered economic growth also struggled with inequality. The same military power that protected allies also drew criticism for certain interventions. And the same ideals of freedom and democracy that inspired millions did not always extend equally to all citizens. Yet throughout his history, the United States has shown an ability to adapt, experiment, and push forward through crises, turning moments of hardship into opportunities for reinvention. Today, discussions about America's role often focus on whether it can continue to lead in a world that is rapidly changing, shaped by technology, shifting alliances, and new global challenges. Some analysts believe America's power is declining, while others argue the country remains uniquely positioned for long-term influence due to its diverse population, strong universities, dynamic economy, and ongoing capacity for scientific and cultural leadership. If this topic carries financial or geopolitical implications, viewers should consider consulting qualified experts for professional guidance. But one thing is clear: the rise of American power is not a simple tale of victory or dominance. It is a complex, ongoing narrative shaped by ambition, conflict, creativity, and the belief that a nation can continually evolve. And that's something worth considering as we think about what leadership means in the 21st century.